There's no real football this week, but there's plenty of football news still to dive into. Cole Thompson joins me. It's the Jake Asman Football Show, and it starts right now.
Oh, yeah. It's time for the Jake Asman Football Show. Brought to you by BetUS. Expert betting odds and fantasy stats. So let's get into some NFL football. Brought to you by our friends at BetUS. So get your questions ready. Here's your host, Jake Asman.
Welcome in, everyone. It is indeed the Jake Asman Football Show. We are presented by BetUS. And look, I understand that the Super Bowl is still about 10 days away, 9 days away, whatever. But guess what? It's never too early to start placing your bets for the big game with BetUS. They have basically every bet you could imagine for this game between KC and Philly. Check it out. Player props, prop bets of every kind. What color is the Gatorade on the winning coach? The coin toss, everything in between. Check it out. We'll talk a little bit about the Super Bowl here with Cole coming up. But BetUS, they are our presenting sponsor. Support them. Take advantage. 150% sign-up bonus with your first deposit, and they're offering 125% with your second and third deposits. Let's say hello right now on a Hawaiian shirt Friday, because that's right. There's no football this weekend. Pro Bowl don't count. To the great Cole Thompson. Hello, Cole. I'm finally wearing a Hawaiian shirt for you.
Happy Hawaiian Friday, Magnum P.I. Ginger. How we doing?
You like my mustache?
I do. I think you look like a fantastic, underrated version of Tom Selleck. You look great.
Now, when I see you Monday in New Orleans, I will not have this. I just want you to know.
Why? It's fun. That's the reason that you keep it. It's for New Orleans.
It was fun for a week, but I got to be professional this week and interview people, and I don't want a mustache for it.
All right, fair enough. I guess that's kind of fair. Do I have to have the mustache then? Do one of us have to have the mustache there or no?
You could, rock whatever facial style you want. Doesn't affect me.
I would like to be able to get into bars later and also be able to go near 10 feet of children. So, I'm going to keep the beard. I think that's probably better.
All right. By the way, Cole, I also am bringing you a gift. I'm bringing you some Jake Asman Show underwear.
I cannot wait. Oh, sweet Lord. I am so excited. I will be rocking that. I will be like the naked cowboy out on Bourbon Street one night with the Jake Asman Show. Great advertising for you.
Beautiful. All right, we got a lot to talk about here in regards to the coaching hiring cycle. We still have one job open, New Orleans. You and I both thought that was Mike McCarthy's job to lose. Not so fast. It feels like it might be Kellen Moore's job to lose after the Super Bowl, right?
Honestly, I don't even know if Kellen Moore wants the job, because if you hear some reports coming out of New Orleans right now, he's not entirely sold on New Orleans being a coveted job, and for a lot of reasons. One of the big things was, what have we talked about with New Orleans for a while? Delaying the inevitable, not wanting to go into the rebuild, trying to keep their window open as long as possible by restructuring contracts and pushing back stuff as much as possible. And unfortunately, here's what's happened now. Now they're in dead cap space hell. They're a veteran roster with aging players that nobody wants to pick up for what their contract's going to be worth. If they cut them, then they're still going to be cut with dead cap space. They're somewhat still picking in relevancy of like a 9-10 range. So they're not in line to land a premier quarterback moving forward. Free agency, they can't go out and bring in anybody. They're in a winnable division, but they have the biggest losable contracts right now. So when you look at the Eagles' job, if Kellen Moore succeeds one more year, there's going to be more opportunities opening up for him, whether it be with a team like Cincinnati or whether it be with a team like Los Angeles or something else out there. So why would you take the Saints job knowing that there is a lose-lose situation right now, including what the results are going to be on the field, when you can stay and potentially win a second Super Bowl and be in a good spot next year to go ahead and cap on in and gain yourself a pretty good job? So it's just like a lot of the things that we've been talking about with New Orleans are finally coming home to roost. And it's a negative about the program because we know that there is no end in sight when it comes to aging rosters, unmovable contracts, where the team resides in the division. And also, they're probably still going to be too good to draft one of the premier quarterbacks in the first round. So they're either going to have to trade up and give up draft capital, which they can't afford to do. And so we're right back at square one where they're going to be yet another 5-12, maybe 6-11 win team next year.
Yeah, I mean, finally, it feels like the cap situation has cost them. They don't have a quarterback. They don't have flexibility to get a better one. And no one wants the job. It kind of feels like. I mean, whoever they take is someone that's settling. Now, maybe McCarthy did want the job, but they weren't gung-ho on some of the things he wanted with the job. I don't know, but I looked at the Saints job as the worst opening coming in, and it feels like people around the league agreed with my assessment there because that's why that job is still open.
Jake, they were the second team to fire a head coach. They're the last job available. Like,
Right.
it's very clear that this job is not for the faint-hearted. And they had an opportunity to bring in Aaron Glenn, who just got the New York Jets job. And that's somebody that loves New Orleans, loves the culture, loves the people, has spent ample time down there working in the recruiting department, working in the coaching room, developing talent, guys like Marshawn Lattimore. And he turned it down to go to New York. And I'm not saying that he didn't want to New York. What I'm saying is that the fact that you couldn't get a candidate like that to even come on in, that's a negative. And the other problem is, who are the movable pieces right now? Your foundation for the next head coach, Chris Olave, Talisi Fuanga, what you got on the defensive line, Eric McCoy. You need those pieces if you don't want to enter a full rebuild tanking mode. So it's like, you can't trade them who have value, and you're not trading the veterans because of nobody is going to take on that dead cap space, especially for a player that's lost a little bit of umph over the last few years. So it is a lose-lose job. The reason why I thought Jacksonville was a worse job than New Orleans was because of Trent Baalke was in the building. But Baalke's gone. They bring in Liam Cohen. They need to bring in a new GM. I mean, trust me, hearing Duval has got to be kind of weird, but still, I'd much rather have that job than the Saints job right now. Plus, it also feels like this AFC South is a winnable division compared to the NFC South.
As far as the other jobs, right? I mean, Aaron Glenn, you already brought his name up. You're high on Aaron Glenn. You like Aaron Glenn. Why is Aaron Glenn a winning hire by the Jets?
Let's start off with the fact that I think that he fits that Jets culture of no nonsense. We understand that we are going to be the underdogs. This is a guy that's been an underdog his entire career. Was an underdog when he came and went into the expansion draft with the Houston Texans, had to rebound himself with the Texans to become a Pro Bowler, goes to Dallas, becomes a Pro Bowler. He also then is in the scouting world for a while. People didn't want to hire him as a coach, but they said, we'll give you a shot as a scout. So we had to learn the ins and outs of understanding talent. He goes and is considered an underwhelming hire by Dan Campbell when he's brought in as the defense coordinator for the Detroit Lions. So that mold of just, hey, we're going to do things my way. My way is going to be better than what you expect. Trust me, it will work out in the end. I think that's a benefit. The other thing, I love the addition of Steve Wilkes as the defense coordinator. I thought that was a very smart hire. Get a veteran who has been around the league for years, has developed talent with very underwhelming rosters in the past, and has been a pretty good defensive mind, is probably one of the better standings that you could have. Then we're talking about the offensive coordinator position. Tanner Engstrand is one of the guys that is being brought up as the new offensive coordinator. That was somebody linked to the job out in Detroit. And if you're trying to build the same type of mentality that you had in Detroit out in New York, well, it starts off with the trenches. It starts off with stable tight end play, and it starts off with a run game. And I think that that's something that you could have in place with an Aaron Glenn, who's going to allow the offense to do things their way. He's going to be a CEO type approach, have some say on the defense, and put himself in a position to where they're landing talent, but they're also developing talent. And I think that that's something that I really appreciate, is the development of talent, the ampleness of putting an attention on making sure that you bring in not just the right culture fit, but the right scheme fit. And you're limiting yourself to certain positions that are only going to fit for what you are acquiring. And that's something that I think Aaron Glenn does a really good job at, deciphering on who fits what actually we need, not just in rounds, but also in terms of play style. And if that mentality is not going to fit in gangrene culture, we don't want you here. And we're okay with that. We're the New York freaking Jets. We're going to do things my way. And if we do things my way, it'll end up working that way.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Jake Asman Football Show, but we're talking about the whole league, Cole's and Aaron Glenn guy. And look what's happened here. You say good things about the Jets, and the Asmaniacs come through. 5 gifted memberships by Paul, 5 by Adriano. We're doing a huge raffle on my Jet show, Cole, that features a bunch of incredible merchandise. If you gift on this show, don't worry, you'll still be included in that raffle, even if you're not a Jet fan and you happen to just be watching this football show here. But signed Joe Willie helmet is the grand prize. Signed Joe Klecko helmet, second place. Signed Mark Gastineau helmet, third place. Signed Coach AG.
There you
photo. Go. And Cole, you already saw the other prize. The underwear, baby. Asmaniac underwear.
Yeah. I cannot wait to have that. I cannot wait to have that underwear. Kirsten's going to love it around the house all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to wear it every Friday when I come on with you, too. Every single week.
You should.
I will. No pants.
Please. I won't spoil things, but we're working on lady underwear as well.
Ooh,
so stay tuned.
I can't wait.
Stay tuned.
I can't wait.
By the way, shout out again to Paul and to Adriano. If you got a membership from them, thank them. I got the names right here. Joe, Florencino, Luis, Cartman, Iboko, Bob DiMucci, Adam, Mac Daddy, TriStar Jet, and Mr. Big Skins, all receiving channel memberships there. Gift the membership if you want in on the raffle. Cole Thompson might even wear some Maniac underwear and then sign a few pairs.
I will sign a few pairs for you guys. Definitely.
I'm going to be with Cole next week in New Orleans, and don't worry, he'll be trying all of it on in NOLA. We'll be having a lot of fun. It's going to be great.
It'll be a great time. Me in underwear, Jake Asman underwear. I'll be the full-fledged Maniac, the number one Maniac for sure.
What are your thoughts on Rodgers, Cole? I'm someone as a Jet fan who wants him back. I think for 1 year, he's the best bridge quarterback they could find. I think if you're Aaron Glenn, try and win as many games as possible with the talent that is still there. This team is a lot better, I believe, than what their record shows. If you're Aaron Glenn, would you want Rodgers as your quarterback next season?
Can I get him on a cheaper deal is, I guess, my only question.
I believe he would redo his contract because then that also brings you Devontae for another year.
Okay,
my
cool.
theory.
So here's the thing that I will say. It's a win-win in either selection, because here's the best part. If you bring back Aaron Rodgers and he works out, you're right back in the hunt for potentially a 10-win season. I think the defense will be better with Aaron Glenn and Steve Wilks calling the shots. I think that you'll be going after certain players in the draft that will up your front line. It will also up your defensive and offensive line. It will allow you to draft potentially a quarterback in round 3 or maybe round 5 that you could develop along with Jordan Travis, to where at the end of the year, if you want to give one of them a shot, you can. But let's also say this. Let's say Rodgers once again shows you that there is regression setting on in, and the season that we saw this past year is right back in the saddle. Whether or not you want to agree that the quarterback class is always going to be better in the next season, it's not going to get worse than what it is this year. There are 2 guys that you're taking in year 1 in the first round, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. That's it. You're picking 7. You are not trading up to go get either one of those quarterbacks, and the teams that are ahead of you are taking those 2 quarterbacks. So if you struggle next year, well, guess what's going to be in line? Potentially Arch Manning, potentially Lenore Sellers from South Carolina. You can also throw in Sam Levitt from Arizona State. There's ample veteran talent like Garrett Nussmeier coming on back in. So you have pieces in play to where if the Jets are picking in the top 5 next season, when there are actually better quarterbacks, ones that you believe could be difference makers and immediate upgrades to your team, Rodgers is gone at that point. He did his job to be able to get you in line for a top-tier quarterback prospect. But either way, it's a win, because either Rodgers sucks and you're going to land a premier quarterback with Aaron Glenn in 2026, or Rodgers is really good and you're in the hunt for a postseason berth. So there's no lose here in my opinion. It literally is always a win-win. And then you also brought this up. If you bring in Devontae Adams, that's only going to benefit your passing attack that much more, along with Garrett Wilson.
Look, I would try and do what the Buffalo Bills did, Cole. They made the playoffs with Tyrod Taylor and Sean McDermott's first year. And guess what? Then they traded up for Josh Allen the following year. Sure, They took a step back record-wise in year 1 of Allen. But then from then on, they got their quarterback. They made the playoffs every year, and the rest is history. Like, that to me would be the move for the Jets. Establish instant credibility if you're Aaron Glenn. If you could somehow end the longest playoff drought in sports, Buffalo went 17 years in between playoff bursts. The Jets are at 14 right now. Ironically enough, if they do move on from Rodgers, it might be Tyrod Taylor as the favorite to be the starting quarterback week 1 next year. So similar situation.
That's the thing, though. Who do you bring in as your quarterback that you feel like is going to be better than Aaron Rodgers right now? Is it one of the rookies? And also, are you going to overdraft a rookie? Jalen Milroe wasn't impressive down in Mobile. Jackson Dart wasn't impressive down in Mobile. There's some things to like about Kyle McCord. I really do like Kyle McCord, and I think he would be a great fit for both New York teams as a 4th-round pick. But are you really going to start a 4th-round pick as a rookie in a year that you feel like that you got to set the tone moving forward? What do you think about going in the open market? Is Russell Wilson that much more of an upgrade over Aaron Rodgers? We've already done the Sam Darnold BS. Are we going to fall for that experiment again and have to actually pay him this time? So it's like, there's no winning formula here besides Rodgers, especially if Rodgers wants to come back. Rodgers can come in here. Rodgers can be a guy that ends up actually stabilizing your roster or put you in a really good position to where you're going to land a quarterback in 2026 with your 1st-round pick in a draft where there are better quarterbacks to select from the 1st round.
Hit the like button if you're tuning in. This is the Jake Asman Football Show here. Cole Thompson joining us. So we're talking about some of the other hires around the league, Cole. I mean, your thoughts on some of the big losers from this cycle. Are you going to start with Mr. Schottenheimer in Dallas? Your take on that?
Can we start with the winners first, just because if it's always nicer to do it that way?
Go ahead.
Or do we have to start with losers? Because I think that
you already said Aaron Glenn's a big winner, so that's good.
I personally think that one of the biggest winners was actually getting Pete Carroll out in Las Vegas. I do. And the main reason why is because you didn't panic. Like in years past, whenever you had Davis picking the next head coach, it always felt like it was a panic move, whether it was going after John Gruden because of he wanted to be the big selling ticket item out in Las Vegas, or it was getting a guy like Josh McDaniels, who people thought was always going to be able to get a second chance and never really worked his way out. And then selling yourself on believing that Antonio Pierce was ready for the job when honestly, the only reason why you signed him on was because if you messed up the last 2 hires and you already got 2 coaches on the payroll. This was a move that said, let's just stabilize our roster. Let's get ourselves in a good position and an adult in the room. Let's make sure that we have somebody who, yes, he's 73 years old, but he doesn't act 73. He acts like he's 65. He's still got that spry and pep in his step. And the way that he talks about football is energetic and it's captivating. And more importantly, it's a selling mechanism for a lot of veterans that are trying to continue to play on past this year. So I think that was a really smart move by a guy in Tom Brady and by Mark Davis to be able to bring in Pete Carroll, who wants to coach. He wants to go ahead and be in a competitive division with Sean Payton, with Jim Harbaugh, and of course, you got to throw in Andy Reid. He's also, I think, going to be able to stabilize the roster within 2 years and put themselves in a great position to where, yes, they will find out if maybe they're not winning, but they're at least a solid roster. I like that. I like that a lot, actually. And I also
agree.
think that
Stabilizes things. You know, you're in a division with loaded coaches. You don't have your quarterback yet, but Pete Carroll could hire a good staff, get you back on track before you make that big swing on QB.
And then I also really do like the addition of Ben Johnson out with the Chicago Bears because I like their defensive coordinator hire in Dennis Allen. I think Allen is one of those guys who, when we look back, it's very similar to Steve Spagnuolo, who probably as a head coach, not a guy that you really want to go after. Not a guy that you have a lot of faith in that he's going to be able to get the job done. Vic Fangio fits this mold. But as a coordinator, you love them. They do a great job of being able to set up your system in a specific way. I think also what you have is some very good pieces on the defensive side of the football. Jalen Johnson, Kevin Byard. You also still have Terrell Edmonds, TJ Edwards. You brought Montez Sweat in for another year. So I like what you have in terms of the defensive personnel, and you can go ahead and draft some more defensive pieces to put yourself in a good position. Chicago has money to spend in free agency, and they're going to bring in some free agents that are very, very solid. You also have a quarterback whisperer, or at least a guy that wants to work with a quarterback such as Ben Johnson with Caleb Williams. And the offensive personnel isn't that bad. I mean, there's very few people who are complaining about having, Rome Odunze as a wide receiver number 2 behind DJ Moore. And on top of that, you still have a good tight end in Cole Kmet that's signed on long-term. 2 running backs that you have a lot of faith in. I think that right now, when you look at where the Bears are, they got to better their offensive line. They'll do so in free agency. I fully expect them to go spend a lot of money, especially on the interior. They may draft a guy in the first round. And as long as you're able to get Caleb Williams to maybe the same level of what Jaden Daniels was in year 2, what he was in year 1, that's good enough to be at least, I think, a 9-win team. 9-8 is not out of the running for a postseason pitcher berth.
I agree with you. And I think at the end of the day, it's always tough to evaluate hires because time tells, right? Guys crush the press conference. They suck at the press conference. And you never know. Like Nick Sirianni flubbed his press conference. People mocked Dan Campbell. And those are 2 of the better coaches in the league. So you just never know. I'm right there with you, Cole. Now, as far as Schottenheimer, I mean, is there any hope for the Cowboys with Shotty?
Okay, here's the one thing I will say, and this has been bothering me for a minute. Cam Newton. Nobody is openly tanking for Arch Manning going into 2025, because here's the reason why. We don't know what Arch Manning is. Our friend Gary is a huge Texas Longhorn fan, and he can tell you right now, he has no idea what to expect in Arch Manning down in Texas. So nobody's tanking. This is a power move by Jerry Jones saying, I want a yes man. I want somebody who is going to lick the bottom of my feet and just say yes, sir, to everything that I want and everything that I believe in. Because when you look at the names that they brought in over the last few years, none of them are actual people that really would fit the Dallas culture. Every single one has to be a yes man. Because if you really want to see change, you bring in a Dan Campbell, you bring in a Ben Johnson, you bring in an Aaron Glenn. You'd go make a move after a guy like a Mike Vrabel. But you didn't do that. Because you want to know why? You don't want to sit down and have an honest conversation about what's wrong with the organization. You don't want to sit down and say to yourself, hey, here's what you need to change if you want to get back to your winning ways. Jerry doesn't want to hear that. And he's going to hear it from a guy like Mike Vrabel. He'll hear it from Ben Johnson. He'll hear it from Mike McCarthy. And guess what? He didn't want to do that. So it's always going to fail. The thing that really bothers me is also, I'm not a big fan of what we're seeing in the offensive coordinator search. Their number 1 candidate is potentially Ken Dorsey, who just had the 31st ranked scoring offense in the NFL this past year. And that's supposed to be a winning formula with Dak Prescott still coming on back in, with still having CD Lamb on the roster, with still having a very solid overall defense, with some marquee players and a top 12 pick to where you can better your trenches or better your defensive line. And because if you don't want to spend money internally on outside players, you're going to extend inside. That's the Dallas way. It's going to fail. It's going to fail so miserably that eventually that's going to be the thing that makes Jerry kick the bucket. It's ridiculous. If Jerry actually wanted to see change, I promise you, they would go out and they would bring in somebody who was willing to say, these are X, Y, and Z if you want me here. But he doesn't want that. The big reason why Bill Belichick didn't even interview for the job when he was at North Carolina is because if you know that Bill would say something that would piss off Jerry and it would lead to a fight.
Holy crap. I've been waiting to hear from this guy, Cole. I mean, I got some breaking news.
Okay.
Hey, Jay Cruz, I see your super chat. You missed the raffle all week because you were working. On Tuesday, you won a signed Garrett Wilson jersey, buddy.
Woo!
I have been trying to get a hold of you all week. I asked in the Discord, Patreon. You haven't been on any of the shows, but I'm so glad you're watching live. Do me a favor, Jay. Shoot me an email, asmanjake@gmail, asmanjake@gmail, and I will make sure that if you send me an email with your address, I get that Garrett Wilson signed jersey to you before I go to New Orleans to hang out with Cole for the week at Radio Row.
Congratulations, Jay.
So
Congratulations.
Jay, oh my God. Finally, Jay. I was getting concerned. I'm like, I hope this guy's still with us. He won a signed Garrett jersey. You won the raffle. Tuesday's first show, Jay, is when you could go back and watch the moment that you won the 13th as Maniac raffle. And Jay, I don't know if you know, probably not because you're working, but our next raffle on the Jet Show is the Joe Namath signed helmet, biggest prize ever in honor of the Super Bowl. Signed Joe Klecko helmet, signed Mark Gastineau helmet, signed AG photo, and brand new, Jay, Jake Asman Show undies. Get ready.
Awesome. Good for you, Jay.
But Jay, I'm happy, man. He goes, you got it, brother. All right, Jay, asmanjake@gmail. Shoot me an email. If you do it, I'll tell you what. My next show's not till 4 Eastern today. If you do it right now, I will run down the street to the UPS store, and I'll try and get it sent out today if I can. So
Beautiful.
Get me an address, and I'll hook you up, Jay. Congrats on winning. I'm glad you're watching the show.
Okay. Jacksonville hire.
Yes.
I don't mind Liam Cohen.
Duval.
I really don't. Duval. Jake Asman. Just talk like this for the rest of the show. Imagine doing a show like that nonstop. I don't mind the hire. I mind the way we went about it, I think was the big question mark that I had here. Because if you say that you're going to go re-sign the deal and be the highest paid coordinator along with what you have in Tampa, and then eventually you just go take it because they get rid of Trent Baalke. So the thing is that if you were going to get rid of Trent Baalke for Liam Cohen, a guy who's been a play caller 1 year, why are you not doing that exact same thing for Ben Johnson, who apparently wanted the job to begin with? That was one of his prime destinations. Being able to
the hire might not be bad, but the process to get there is
wild.
Get there
is really bad.
And now they don't have a GM, and Liam Cohen, who's been a coordinator for a year in the NFL, is now going to hire the GM. That's pretty crazy.
And he's going to have a major say in the hire of the GM, which again, it may be Ian Cunningham, who is a really, really smart guy from the Chicago Bears that honestly I thought should have taken over for Ryan Poles this past offseason, which may be beneficial for a team like Jacksonville that has the number 5 overall pick. But still, it's the process that you got there is what's really, really, really frustrating me, because it is a guy that when I look at, he's not worthy of having a say in the GM. And why is it Liam Cohen that we're talking about that has to be the one that lets you get rid of Trent Baalke? What was going on that was so great with Trent Baalke that Liam Cohen was the selling point for you? So that was the whole thing that I did like about it. From an actual X's and O's standpoint, I think it's a pretty solid move. I'm not sitting there and saying that they're going to be a 10-7 team immediately. I'm not saying that they'll be a contender in the AFC, but you just saw continued growth with Baker Mayfield, who set a record-setting over 4,500 passing yards, 41 touchdowns this past year. He was able to get really good development from the run game. He had solid offensive line execution, really good overall wide receiver play with Jalen McMillan. You also throw in Mike Evans, who had another 1,000-yard season. There's pieces there in Jacksonville. It's not like they're super, super far off when it comes to the offense. Trevor Lawrence, I still think could be a solid top 15 passer, maybe not a top 10 player anymore. What you have in a really, really good up-and-coming wide receiver in Brian Thomas Jr., quality number 2 in Christian Kirk. You still have Evan Ingram signed to a long-term deal. 3 of your starting offensive linemen are back on in. You have some pieces defensively. I really do like what they have currently in Jacksonville for Liam Cohen to work with. And I think he's made some smart hires. Some really good. The defensive coordinator hire that he made from Green Bay last night is a very solid move. He'd worked in Miami for a few years. But it's just the process of getting there that I don't like. The other biggest loser, for my opinion, is going to be New Orleans. They've had over 2 months to decide on what direction they want to go. They still don't have an option going into Super Bowl week.
Leon says Jake and Cole look like they're in Hawaii for the Pro Bowl. Well, maybe that's why we did it.
Yeah.
Well, Cole wears a Hawaiian shirt every Friday. And my big thing is it's not Hawaiian shirt Friday when it's still football season, but there's no football. There is the Pro Bowl, which is not even a game anymore. It's a skills contest. So guess what?
It's a flag football competition.
Yeah. So I'm rocking a Hawaiian shirt because it's not football Friday today. It's Hawaiian shirt Friday. Next week, though, in New Orleans, Cole, at Radio Row, guess what? It's back to football Friday.
Well, it's Hawaiian Friday for Cole Thompson. It's always Hawaiian Friday for Cole Thompson. Breaking news, Jake.
What happened?
The New York Jets have made a hire.
Oh, is it done? Is it official with Mr. Tanner?
Official. The Steelers are the Jets are hiring Steelers inside linebacker Aaron Curry as their new linebackers coach.
I remember him as a player.
Yep. Number 5 overall player out of Wake Forest by the Seattle Seahawks. Never did shit.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. There you go. Look at me breaking news on the Jake Asman football show, not the Jake Asman Jet show.
I like it. Well, I'll talk more about this this afternoon. We have a new LB coach in the house. All right. So there you go. Let's see. All right, Cole. I know you weren't there in Mobile, but you got sources who were. Give us some quick takeaways on the Senior Bowl before we start to wrap up.
There's really not a quarterback that right now you can buy a lot of stock into after day one that you think will be a day one starter. So there's some pieces that you really like, like maybe you'll say, oh, Jackson Dart, we can kind of turn into something else. We can turn Jalen Milroe into something. Maybe you throw Riley Leonard into something, but you're not believing that they're day one starters or even role players. They're going to take a lot of time to develop, a lot of hit and miss, a lot of think and dunk passes, not something that you're really excited in. Defensively, there were some really, really good pieces that you could get at the end of day one. I think that Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle from Ole Miss, is a guy that you should monitor, whether that be late round 1, early round 2. He can play a 3-tech. He can play a 1-tech. Good pass rusher. Last season goes on into Ole Miss after underwhelming at Texas A&M. 14 tackles for losses. A really, really good run stopper for the number 2 run defense in college football last season. I think that Quincy Riley, the cornerback, made himself some money. Really good 4.3 speed, sticky in man coverage. I think that he has a shot at probably going somewhere in round 2. You also got to throw in Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky, another guy that I think is going to be really beneficial, especially in the right system. This feels like a guy that you probably would want to see in your nickel position, especially for somebody like Aaron Glenn, who knows how to develop cornerback play. Wide receivers. I do think that there is a reason why if you were to go out and bring in somebody else to be the long-term replacement, if you're not sold on Malachi Corley, or if you want to just add in some depth, there were some guys down there that were really good. Jack Beck from TCU, I see in the comment section, had a really good week. He's a big slot receiver. He used to play tight end, physical type of dude, really, really physical type of playmaker, especially when it comes to run blocking. Kyle Williams from Washington State last year had almost 1,000 receiving yards, put himself in a great position, I think, to be able to put himself forward. Strong week of practice this past week. I think the tight end play is really beneficial. This is a year where if you want a tight end, you go draft a tight end and you can wait until rounds 2 or 3. Some guys like Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green. You also have Caden Prieskorn out of Ole Miss. You can throw in a couple of other guys who might blank off the top of my head. Georgia Tech's Harrison Fox, I think, is one. You also throw in Elijah Arroyo. He's starting to gain a lot of momentum for day 2 coming out of Miami. Good route runner, solid catch radius, runs a good 4.4 speed, so he adds that tremendous value. He's also pretty good as a run blocker. There's some pieces there. The quarterback room as a whole is going to be down in 2025, but when it comes to depth, there's some pieces that you can really, really like to build for your team as a foundation moving forward.
Hit the like button if you're just tuning in. We're talking with Cole Thompson. Cole and I together next week in New Orleans, so we'll have some content for you guys on the channel previewing the Super Bowl. We'll get more into it then. But Cole, before we wrap, initial thoughts on this matchup. Rematch of 2 years ago. Eagles trying to prevent the Chiefs from making history as the first team ever to three-peat 3 straight Super Bowl titles. Your thoughts about 9 days out from this game?
Real quickly, B Sport is 7482. It was Mike Green. He's from Marshall. He's not a D2 player. He put Josh Conley on his ass. I don't think the Jets should target him at pick number 7, but in a trade back, absolutely would do so. Okay, now we got that out of the way. It just feels inevitable that we're going to see the same BS happen that we saw a few years ago. I think that when you look at what the Eagles are, they're a very balanced offense when it comes to the run game. They know what they have in Saquon Barkley. They know what they have in the legs of Jalen Hurts. The passing attack, I think, is kind of getting lost in translation because of just how much of an emphasis we're putting on the 2 in the backfield. But you watch this as A.J. Brown came up with an exceptional touchdown pass inside the red zone. You still have Devontae Smith, who does a great job of route running. I think he can beat up on what you have currently in the secondary for Kansas City. Overall, the thing that I really am bothered by, Jake, is that so many people are picking Kansas City to win. But look at the roster. Do you feel like that there is one spot outside of quarterback that Kansas City is better than Washington in any capacity? Running back, you're taking Saquon Barkley. Wide receiver duos, you're immediately taking A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith over Xavier Worthy and Marquise Brown. You look at tight end play, you're taking Goddard probably over Kelsey, depending on what the situation is. Offensive line, immediately taking the Eagles' offensive line. Defensive line, I get it that you still have Chris Jones, but I got Jalen Carter to go counteract that. So I feel really good about Eagles' defensive line. Linebacker play, Zach Bond has had a breakout year. The secondary, you got 2 electric whites or exciting whites in the back end. Like, how can you not appreciate that? But it just feels like that this is inevitable for Kansas City to get the job done. They've been here before. They've been here with this exact roster before. They know the mentality of what it takes to be able to play a 4-quarter game. I think what's really going to determine this is who wins the third quarter. If somehow, some way, Philadelphia can take a 7-point lead going into half, capitalize and be a 10-3 differential, I really, really, really do like Philadelphia to win this game. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think right now, if I was to be a betting man, Kansas City is going to come out swinging in the third. They're going to be able to at least tie it and then potentially take away and go take advantages going into the fourth quarter, and they'll hoist up their three-peat. And then afterwards, maybe we'll finally see regression set in. Maybe this will be the swan song for Travis Kelce. He wants to go get married to Taylor Swift. You'll see some players that are entering free agency. They're going to sign elsewhere. And we won't see a run with this Kansas City Chiefs team anymore. But it does feel like Kansas City right now has the most to gain. It's like, okay, cool. Philadelphia's here, but it could have been Detroit. It could have been Tampa. It could have been Washington. The story would have written itself. The Chiefs are getting the three-peat.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to bet on the game early, get your bets in. BetUS, place to do it. The line right now at BetUS for the Super Bowl is Kansas City minus 1.5. They are a 1.5-point favorite. That's basically where it's been since the line opened. So I think it will be a great game. We will certainly preview it and talk more about it next week on the Jake Asman Football Show. Cole, next time I see you, we'll be in New Orleans on Monday, and I can't wait, man. Looking forward to it.
Monday morning, you're stuck with me for 4 days. He may not be here that much longer, ladies and gentlemen.
It's going to be a magical time, folks. A magical time. Thanks to everyone who watched the Jake Asman Football Show. Please like the video and subscribe if you haven't. By the way, I want to plug my Instagram handle. I'm 25 followers away from 6,000 on IG, at Jake Asman. Follow me there. Then you can follow at Jake Asman Show. So please give me a follow on Instagram if you're one of the hundreds of people that are tuning in to the show right now and the thousands who watch after the fact. Once again, shout out to BetUS for being our presenting sponsor. He's Cole Thompson. My name is Jake Asman. We will talk to you live from New Orleans next week. Have a great weekend, everybody.